it live. I forgot to plug in my microphone. Y'all can hear me either way, but still, pay for this equipment. I want to get my money's worth, huh? Alright. Cool. I'm gonna get myself together while people tune in. It is that time. Okay, yeah, it's working. Looks like it's working. Great. It is that time again for Have a Little Talk with me. Okay. Let me pull up my notes while people tune in and all that good stuff. I'm using my own equipment today. Again, very happy that I have my own equipment. Okay. Actually, so I don't have to hold this thing. I'm gonna just, yep, perfect. Beautiful. Okay. So, welcome. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm back with another episode of Have a Little Talk. Today is a really good topic. Well, I think they're all good. I always think they're good, but today is a really good topic. But yeah, I just want to start with like kind of, I don't know why I feel the need to break the ice. It's just me, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I don't know, this week's been kind of funny for me. As you can see, I tried a new hairstyle, and if you follow me on here, you probably saw my status about how it's rude to make fun of like anything that a creative person produces, and I stand by that. Definitely stand by that. What had happened was this. I did my hair. I've been doing my own hair for years now. I decided I was going to try a new style. And yeah, so it's curly, like you can see it's curly, but I cut bangs into it. And I wanted the bangs to be like big and voluminous like the rest of it is, but to be completely honest, I ended up looking like Rick James. And, you know, like any creative, I'm kind of like sensitive about what I do, whether I'm doing my hair, whether I'm cooking, whether I'm writing, whatever. I'm sensitive about it. So, you know, I went to work yesterday and some of my coworkers were making fun of me. They were making little jokes, thinking I didn't pick up on it. I did. And like, gosh, it goes along with the topic today. Like, I'm going through a season of transition, so my emotions, I'm like emotionally, I'm like a little more tender than usual. So like, I'm at work like, I'm gonna take my hair out, I'm taking all of this out, I'm taking it out. People want to make fun of me. They keep saying I look like Rick James and like, I was legit at work about to cry because I was in my feelings so bad. It's so terrible. But I mean, obviously I got past it. It's still in my hair. But I got a pep talk from my brother and another coworker, and I ended up feeling better. So yeah, I'm keeping this in. Like, I worked hard on this. Like, this is honestly, outside of the bangs, this is one of my better installs. I feel like I get better every time. But anyway, that's just a short little story. Yeah, we're gonna get into it. Today we are talking about transition. It's part of our seasons series. So yeah, let's get into it. A scripture that I found to go along with this is 2 Corinthians 5:17. This time I brought my actual Bible, my physical Bible. It was given to me by Bishop Hamilton when I got ordained as minister. This was like his gift to me and everyone else who got licensed that day. So yeah, I have it, so I may as well use it. So 2 Corinthians 5:17. All right. And it reads as such. And this is the NLT version. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone. A new life has begun. And I mean, it's a pretty familiar scripture for, anybody who's read the Bible. It's pretty common. short, sweet, and to the point. It has to do with seasons, transition, everything like that. And if you've been watching, I love a definition. So, the definition of transition, according to Oxford Languages, says the process or period of changing from one state or condition to another. Again, short, sweet, and to the point. That's what transition is. You're going from one state to another, or condition, one state or condition to another. So yeah, this time I did write notes because I just didn't want to get off topic. Like, I feel like this topic is too important to just like ramble on and get off track. So, in no particular order, I just wrote down things like my thoughts on transition, different facets of it, what it entails, and I'm talking from my own personal experience. Like I said, I'm going through a season of transition myself. It has not been easy. It's been uncomfortable, but I'm just sharing what I've learned and what I've experienced, and I hope and pray that it helps somebody else. So first, a big part of transition is to unlearn the old. So things you may have been raised to believe, to think, to act, etc., or things you may have like picked up, on the way, like in life. It may not have been your parents that instilled a certain thing in you. It could have been a friend. It could have been a mentor. It could have been, it could be anybody in your life, or just something that you saw on your own and you adopted that principle or that ideology, whatever that may be. Some of these things that we picked up or learned or raised to believe, they could be wrong and or toxic. And there's nothing wrong with believing a certain thing or feeling a certain way. If you felt that way for such a long time, there's nothing wrong with changing that. There's nothing wrong with admitting, oh yeah, I used to think that, or I used to feel that way, but now, like when you're exposed to something new or presented with a new or better idea or another way, it's okay to admit, it's okay to change your mind. You know what I mean? Especially if it's to something more positive. It's totally okay to change your mind. And I put in my notes, there is a better way. And a lot of times we don't realize that what we're doing and what we're saying and what we think, we don't realize that these things are bad or that they're toxic until you present it to somebody else, or until you hear from somebody else, someone who may have a different opinion, or someone who may live differently, come from a different lifestyle, things like that. There's people who were raised a certain way and then they go away to college, or they move out of state, or something like that. They change their environment and then they learn, oh, there's a different way. So that's not the only way. So y'all don't do that. Everybody doesn't do that, and it could be anything. Honestly, it could be anything. The example I thought of, since we're in the Bible, it was Paul. It was Paul who was, he was prosecuting. I believe he was executing Christians, and then he became one. And it's understandable. Those who knew what he did, like, it's understandable to raise an eyebrow at someone who has transitioned to a new way of life. Like, if you pay attention, there are celebrities who are giving their lives to God. As we all know, Blac Chyna, she has turned her life over to God. I didn't know that at first. I just knew that she was getting like the fillers dissolved and the implants taken out, things like that. I didn't know until later on, actually just recently, that she had given her life over to God. That made me even more excited and even more happy for her. Another is B Simone and her best friend Megan Brooks. Well, I'm sorry, I don't think her last name is Brooks anymore, but her best friend Megan, um, Megan Ashley. We're gonna call her Megan Ashley, but Megan has been walking with God for a long time. B Simone, she's actually a PK, and like all of us, we go through life, and sometimes we may lose our way. But now she's like, I want to know God. I want a deeper relationship with Him, and I think that's great. I think it's amazing, and I don't know them personally, but of course I'll be praying for them and wishing them the best. But yeah, unlearning and then also relearning. If you're gonna unlearn something, if you're gonna get rid of something, you want something more positive in its place. Excuse me, I'm a little tired. But when you're unlearning things, you want to make sure you learn a better way. Like when you do learn a better way to kind of take its place. Um, which leads me to my next point is changing your language. It's very important to change your language because your words have power. I'm pretty sure we've heard it said before, like your words definitely have power. The way you speak to or about others, the way you speak to and about yourself, um, and delivery definitely matters. The way you say things, um, like I used to take like insults lightly, but like no, from someone like me who has been torn down by words and broken down by words, I understand the power that they hold. So, you just have to be careful. Have to be very, very careful. Affirmations are very important. I think adopting affirmations in place of putting yourself down or putting others down. Um, I'm sure we all heard the saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's an easy principle to live by right there. And also, if you wouldn't want someone else talking to you like that or saying something like that to you, like something negative or something insulting or something rude, if you wouldn't want someone else saying that to you, or if you wouldn't be okay with that being said to you, why would you say it out of your mouth? And since we're here, insulting people and tearing people down, it's not going to add anything to you at all. You're not going to get cool points. You're not going to get any accolades. You're definitely not going to get any awards. It's not going to make your house any bigger. It's not going to give you anything good. All it's going to do, and I'm going to be very frank, all it's going to do is make you look like a jerk. And if that's who you are, that's fine, but take that somewhere else. Don't bring that around positive people. People who are trying to be positive, people who are trying to do better. Like, take that negativity somewhere else. Go be negative by yourself. And that leads me to my next point under change your language. Whatever is in you will always come out. Always. So, and a lot of times it comes out in what you say. Just like another status I posted last night. Let people talk long enough. Just let people talk. Eventually they'll tell on themselves. It's the truth. Like I was on a phone call last night with someone who someone I was on a phone call with someone, and they started rambling and just going on and on and on, talking about themselves, and eventually their true intentions came out. And I said, oh, there it is. I said, within myself, of course, I was like, oh, there it is. And I ended that phone call because what's in you is going to come out. And especially for people who like to talk, like honestly, for people who don't like to talk, somebody like me, I am very introverted. Like I was telling, who was I telling? I was telling one of my coworkers the other day, like, if you want a conversation out of me, I have to be comfortable around you. Excuse me. I have to feel safe. I'm very big on feeling safe. I'm not the type of person who will just open up for no reason. Like, no. I don't like small talk. I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't care. I have the weather app. I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about these surface things. Like I like to have actual conversation. Um and so f- even for people like me who don't like to talk much, if you get them comfortable enough, if you make them feel safe, if you make them feel heard, like a lot of times you just need to listen. A lot of times people just want a listening ear. And if you be that, if you are that, if you become that for a person and just let them talk, eventually they'll tell on themselves. And not everything in us is bad. I'm not saying that, like, I'm not just targeting negative people. You know what I mean? Like, but since we're talking about transition and we're talking about, unlearning things and changing our language, if you're fed negativity, that's what's going to come out of you. I every now and then I see the picture of a parent and a child. It's like a child standing in front of their parent, and the parent is like saying, like, from the parent's mouth, it's coming like nothing but negativity, nothing but negativity. And then the child's mouth is open and nothing but negativity is coming out of their mouths. So even though I'm not a parent, like, anyone who works with children, it's important to sow positivity into them and to give them positivity, because again, whatever's in you is going to come out. Just point blank period. Um Another point as a part of transition is changing your surroundings. That is very, very important. I mean, all these points, excuse me, are important in my opinion, but changing your surroundings is important as well. Sometimes you'll have to do that. Um, that could entail anything from changing your circle to literally changing where you live. Um, most times you need that change of scenery, because going back to the beginning, when you're unlearning things, you're not it is almost impossible to unlearn toxic behaviors in the same environment where you learned those toxic behaviors, because 9 times out of 10, well, 8 times out of 10, the people around you are not trying to change. And that's unfortunate, but if especially if you're the only one who's trying to make those changes, and everyone around you is just like okay with being toxic and negative and still has that same mindset, you need to get away from that. If you're in transition, like, a lot of times changing where you are is very necessary. You're already changing on the inside, like internally, so you're out, like, physically you may need to change. That may mean changing who you talk to, changing your friends, your circle, um changing where you live, moving out of your hometown. I am one of the people, like, I moved out of my hometown, and nothing against my hometown or the DMV or anything. Like, I still love it, still talk about it, still, it's been a minute since I've been back, but like, I'm still willing to go back for like a day, but I had to change my environment. It wasn't until I moved out of my hometown that I realized, oh, okay, that mindset is not okay. Um, the way I acted there, like, I couldn't. I was literally in a new place. Like, back home, I was single. I was not. I had no title. I had no real responsibilities, like in the church and things like that. When I moved, literally my whole life changed. So, like, I've been going through years of transition, and there was a lot that I had to unlearn. My language has definitely changed. My surroundings have definitely changed, and even since being here, I've had to change my surroundings. My circle of friends has changed several times. Hey, brother Reverend Pastor. How are you? Thank you for joining, and thank you for everybody else who's joining. Um, I I am watching, but thank y'all for joining. I appreciate you. Where were we? Yes, changing your surroundings. Um, you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick, and that's kind of like what I said earlier. Like, if you're in a toxic environment or you're in a place, like if you were okay, I'll just throw out an example. Like, if someone was raised to be racist, unfortunately, if they were raised to be racist and then they move out and they end up moving to a town that's full of people of color, that's a culture shock to them. Like, obviously, they're gonna be they're gonna have to do some kind of transition, or they're just gonna have to like go back, um they'll have to unlearn though that racist mentality. And this is just an example. Like, this can be applied to any kind of mindset that is toxic. um if you're a bigot, like, or if if maybe like a parent or whoever you were raised with was like that, and you saw and heard them talk about other people negatively, and then you adopt that language, and then you end up experiencing life, experiencing more, and then you realize, oh, that's wrong. Like, oh shucks, that's not, maybe you learn a stereotype, and then you meet someone who's a part of that culture, and you're like, oh, y'all aren't really like that. It that's what I mean as far as a change of scenery, like changing your surroundings. Oh, and also, hey Nita, thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning in. Um, yes, this is a good one. Put distance between you and anyone/anything that causes you to revert back to the old. That's very important. Like, I would hate for myself or any of you to do all of this work, all of this unlearning, all of this, to make all of these changes just to go back, just to revert back or relapse because of a moment or a person, excuse me, who caused you to slip up. I mean, none of us are perfect, don't get me wrong. It's totally, it's possible for us to mess up. But don't go into it expecting to mess up, because that makes you more susceptible to slipping and falling. If it does happen, okay, give yourself grace and get back up and try again. Simple as that. Don't beat yourself up about it. But yeah, definitely create that distance. Put distance between you and anyone or anything that causes you to go back. Um, Again, I'm just gonna use myself as an example. Excuse me. Like, last week, I mentioned that I had given up drinking alcohol. So obviously, I need to change my surroundings. I do have friends who like to drink. They like to go to the bar. They like to have kickbacks and pull out the alcohol. And I'm just like, I can't. I'm like, I'm just like, I'm not into that anymore. So obviously, I can't be around that. Um, I'm able to like kind of, I do speak up for myself. I let them know. Like, I've been telling them, like, I gave it up. I'm done with that. At first they didn't believe me, but now that I'm actually like showing them, they're like, "Oh, okay. I respect that." And I'm glad they respect it, cuz if they didn't, then I would have to be like, "All right, well, y'all won't see me anymore." Just point blank period. And you know, hopefully it never comes to that, because I love my friends. They're amazing. Um okay. So these last 2 points, I know I've said all of them are important, but the last two are very important. Um, tuning into God through prayer and scripture. That's very important. When you're in transition, you need God to guide you. It's very important to have Him as a guide. Um, praying, having that conversation with God. That's what prayer is. Prayer is having a conversation with Him. You want to, like, you know, make, ask Him questions, make your requests known. If you really want transition, if you really want to change, if you want a change to take place in your life, simply ask Him. Especially if this change is going to lead you back to Him or bring you closer to Him. Prayer will always bring you closer to God because you're literally communicating with Him. Prayer is definitely everything. That was my first sub point under that. Prayer is everything, for sure. It's communicating with God. And an important thing about prayer is not just you talking. Make sure you make time to sit and listen. Listen for His instructions. And, He could say it to you directly. He could say it through somebody else. He could say it in the scripture. Like, praying and reading and studying, like, they go hand in hand. And they're very important. And on those days when you don't feel as strong, those days when you feel weak, those days when you're discouraged, those days when you're frustrated, those days when you're uncomfortable, those days when you might want to give up, you might want to go back, that's where you find your strength. That's where you find your guidance in prayer and in the scripture. My prayer life, I believe, has definitely grown since, especially with this particular transition. It happened because of prayer. I was praying. I asked God. I actually told Him. Like, I was just like, listen, because I know what He's called me to do. I know who He's called me to be. And I knew with where I was at the time, I knew I wasn't going to do it on my own. I kept telling myself, oh, I'll get it together eventually. Eventually I'll get there. But I was trying to do it in my own strength. And I finally realized that I couldn't do it in my own strength. I can't do it myself. I need that supernatural help because literally only God could do it. I had to be honest with myself. And that might be the next topic. Knowing yourself and being honest with yourself. I knew that where I was never going to change because I was comfortable there. And just being straight up honest. If I'm being completely honest, knowing I was in the wrong, knowing I was in error, I was comfortable. So I was never going to change. I knew that it would have to take God to transform me, to change me. And I told Him, I was like, listen, you're going to have to do it. And you're going to have to change me from the inside out. And He has done just that. And He is doing just that. Excuse me. And I'm definitely grateful for it. For sure. But since then, I've been, continuously praying, even if it's during the day, like in a moment of frustration, or, I'll either verbally pray or I'll write in my journal. Like, there's many different forms of prayer. There's no right or wrong way to pray or to communicate with God. And then the scriptures, like, every answer you need is in the Bible. You just got to take time to really read it and to study it. Like, me personally, I love studying the scripture. I love, uncovering different facts and things like that. And lately I've been finding myself kind of like sharing Bible stories with my friends. Like, the other day I was telling, I was born and raised in church, so I assume that everybody knows these stories in the Bible and things like that. But I was sharing the story of Ruth and Naomi with my best friend. I work with my best friend. And, I tell him in my own words, so it's kind of entertaining. So, I was telling him that story, and I've told him other Bible stories as well. But, yeah, every answer you need, you can find it in the Bible. Like, this particular Bible I have actually has different topics, and then they give you scriptures to go with it, or scriptures about it, like anxiety and things of that nature. Yeah, that's what it's called. Life application, life topics. And literally from A to Z, they have it in here. Like anything, anything you need to know is in the Bible. And even if you don't want to carry a physical one, there are a million apps. So many apps on the App Store. There's different versions of the Bible, different forms, things like that. Lastly, and a part of tuning into God is finding a trustworthy leader who will properly care for you naturally and spiritually. One who will responsibly monitor your growth, hold you accountable, and ensure that you continue to grow. A good leader will do all those things. And again, I know from experience because I have a great leader in my life. My spiritual father, Bishop Hayward Hamilton, has been a great leader. He has been a great shepherd. He has been a great spiritual father. He treats me as if I'm one of his own children. And I needed that. Like, I still need it. Like, I need that guidance. He will correct you lovingly. And he's been very instrumental in my spiritual growth. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Mom Jacqueline. Excuse me. Always good to see you. Always good to see you. But yes, finding a trustworthy leader. And, again, it just, like everything in this particular section, it all goes in hand, like praying, reading the scriptures, listening for God's voice. Like that is most important, because again, in prayer, it can't just be you talking. Like, look at it in the natural. If you're having a conversation with somebody and all they're doing is talking and not giving you a chance to respond, that's not a conversation. That's just somebody talking at you. Like, don't just talk at God. Make sure you give him space and you give him time to talk back to you and to give you those instructions. Sometimes it'll be in that moment of prayer. Sometimes it'll be as you're going about your day. But either way, just make sure you're open. Make sure you're open to him and listening for him, listening for his voice. Because he'll definitely, if you ask him, he'll definitely lead you and guide you the way that you should go. So, the last point, it kind of makes me laugh, because for someone like me who is a planner and likes to know all the details, this is the biggest one I had to learn. Be okay with little to no details from God. Because, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, like, he's not always going to tell you everything. He's not. Like, for me personally, like, I know where I'm going. I know that, I don't know the end, but I know the destination. Like, I know where God is trying to get me. He has shown me myself. He's shown me who he's called me to be. Like, and at first when he started showing me, I felt crazy trying to explain it, but now I understand. So, like, I know where I'm going. It's just been me getting there has just been, that's been the hardest part for me. It's been quite the journey. Quite the journey. It has felt like a roller coaster, but I'm getting there, and I'm on my way. I am well on my way. But yeah, for someone like me who likes to plan, I don't like surprises. I like to know what's going on. Like, I need the details. But when it comes to God, like, he doesn't give me details. Thank you, Nita. I love you so much. Yeah, God doesn't give me details. He's just like, he'll tell me, go this way. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, now I'm to the point where I'm just like, okay. I don't question it. Or even if I do question it, I don't waste time going back and forth. Sometimes you don't have that time to go back and forth with God or with anybody. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you just gotta go and you'll figure it out on the way. Like, I hope this doesn't happen, but let's say, like, in 10 seconds, the fire alarm goes off here. I'm not really going to have time to stop and ask the staff here, oh, what's going on? Is this real? Is this a real fire? No, I'm going to put my shoes back on. I'm going to grab my stuff and I'm going to go. And we'll ask questions later. I'll get my answers later. Yes, I will get my answers later. But right now, I got to move. And that's where I'm at right now as far as my walk with God. And that's just how it is. Like, right now, I got to move. I'll get my answers later. Like, oh, yes, I'll have questions. Yes, I'll be nervous. Yes, I'll be afraid. I might be afraid. I don't know. Might be nervous. Might have questions. But right now, gotta move. So, yeah, and you never know, like, God's timing is always perfect. Always. Even if we feel like we're behind, if we feel like we're not ready, if we feel like this isn't the right time, like, God's timing is always perfect. You never know what you could be dodging or what you could be avoiding or what you could be walking into when you follow his instructions at that time. Like, it's happened to me. Like, living in Philly, right now I'm commuting, like, when I commute back and forth, sometimes he'll tell me to take a different route, and it may take me out of the way, or it may take longer, and then later on I'll see something in the news, something that happened on my normal route. Had I gone the normal route, I would have been a part of that crime or whatever happened. And that's just an example. Like, it has happened before, but that's just an example. But I'm a firm believer that God's timing is always perfect. So it's just best to move when he says move. When he says it, not when we say it. And yeah, just move first and you will get your answers along the way or when you get there. Like, God is the only person, there's a few other people that I would follow blindly because I just trust them like that. But yeah, I would definitely follow God blindly because he's never steered me wrong. Ever. Like, the song Order My Steps just came to my head. Like, seriously, he will order your steps. And who better to follow than the creator of the universe? Whatever it is that you want to walk into, whatever it is that you want to accomplish, whatever it is that you want to conquer, who better to follow? Who better to follow than the God who created whatever it is you want to walk into? The God who will give you power to conquer whatever it is that you're trying to conquer. Who better to follow? Hey, Cherie, my good sis. And I agree, absolutely. God does lead and guide us. I love you so much. That's all the points that I have. But yeah, I hope that something I said was helpful. I hope that something I said, I pray that this message reaches who it needs to reach. That's always my hope and my prayer, that this message reaches who it needs to reach. And anybody who is in transition like I am, I just pray, I pray your strength, because that's one of the biggest things that it takes in this season is, like, strength. In every season, like, when you're going from one season to the next, this season of transition, it's not always easy, especially depending on what it is you're going from and what it is you're going into. Like this transition that I'm in, God is he's literally changing my nature. Like, my appetite for certain things is gone. Like my tolerance for certain things, for some it's high, for some things my tolerance is higher, some things my tolerance is lower. There's some things I just don't tolerate anymore. Some conversations I don't have anymore. Some people I don't talk to anymore. Some people I don't spend time around. And it has not been easy. It has not been comfortable. At one point I was just straight up honest with God. I was like, listen, I hate this. I hate this right now. Like and I just told him I'm uncomfortable. I don't like this. But I know where the end is going to be. Like I know the destination again. And again, who better to follow but God? So, I'm on great time. Wonderful. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. I will be back probably next week. Well, yeah, next week. Like I said last time, my schedule is wonky. So, I just kind of come on when I can. And I appreciate everyone who's been tuning in, who's been watching. If you tuned in live or if you're watching the replay, I appreciate you so very much. This podcast is growing and expanding little by little. There is work going on behind the scenes. So yeah, just keep me in prayer, keep the show in prayer. We're just going to continue to grow and expand. And to everyone who is in transition, to everyone who is going from one season to the next, definitely praying for you. Keep your head up. Just stay in line with God. Like, just keep going. You got this. I'm talking to you and I'm talking to myself. I love y'all so much, and I will see y'all next time. Please stay tuned for the next air date and the next topic. Thank you all very much, and have a great evening.